Welcome to Austin Tech Connect, the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Presented to you by Netspend. Homegrown in Austin, Netspend has been a leading provider of consumer and business payment solutions for almost 25 years. From prepaid cards to mobile bank accounts to money movement services, Netspend connects people, brands, and payment products to deliver innovative financial solutions.
Welcome to Austin Tech Connect, the podcast about the future of Austin's technology community. My name is Tom Singer, and I'm the CEO at the Austin Technology Council, and every week we engage with local leaders to hear their stories of success and to get their advice on how we can all thrive. And today, I am really happy that we are joined by Krishna Srinivasan from LiveOak Venture Partners. Hey, Krishna, welcome to the show.
It's a real pleasure to be here, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So for those of you who don't know Krishna, he is one of the original people in the Austin venture capital scene. He actually came here for graduate school at the University of Texas in 1993, and then he went on to a career at Motorola. Then he went to the Wharton School of Business to get his MBA, and he came back in 2000 and joined Austin Ventures. Now, for those of you who've been around a while, Austin Ventures was the dominant firm in the venture capital scene for about a decade. And then after leaving AV, he decided to become an entrepreneur of his own by starting LiveOak Venture Partners. And they are arguably one of the most active investing firms in Texas, and they focus only on Texas entrepreneurs, helping them thrive and grow their business. So today, we're going to find out a little bit about what he's doing now and what he thinks is the future of Austin. So let's go back in the Wayback Machine. Let's go back to when you first got to Austin the second time, when you came in 2000 with Austin Ventures. What was going on in Austin at that time, and what did you learn during that decade?
Well, I came to this town in Jan of 2000, right before the March 10th burst of the bubble, the tech bubble, which I'm sure you remember well, Tom. You were in the business at the time. So 2000 was a pretty wild time. Austin was vibrant with a lot of investment activity. There were 15 firms in this town, both the local national firms with offices here and so on. It's a town with pretty, lot of diverse activity. And then, of course, the March 10th and then 9/11 happened, and it was a time of really figuring out how to save companies, save our own careers, and fighting through this war of attrition through the process. As a result, it was a time of tremendous learning, how to navigate companies, keep them afloat, help them survive through some very challenging times. And thankfully, felt like I survived the business and learned some phenomenal lessons, which are actually coming to be in very good stead as we speak right now in current times. So that's part of the landscape at the time of when I joined the business, the first couple of years of it.
So yeah, I remember those days, and there was a lot of shakeup going on. So you talk about in the early 2000s really having to get down and learn those lessons on how to salvage companies. What are some of those lessons that you learned that are still important today? When I first joined the business, it felt like the good times would never end. And maybe about 18, 24 months later, it felt like the bad times will never end. So the first lesson is when it looks so good, it's never so good. When it looks so bad, it's never so bad. That's the macro philosophical view of life in general, right? But that's very applies. So that's a lesson that we have applied relentlessly here at LiveOak as well, which is to just be much more even-keeled with respect to how we approach investing. If you go look at our last 5-year pace of investing, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, it's been fairly within a band. We have invested at a steady pace. We have bought, priced things at a pretty steady pace. And similarly, 22, we didn't get into a funk and get into the doldrums and saying, oh my God, the world is coming to an end. Did not happen either. So it's been, the importance is to be even keeled, and kind of the steady as she goes, even under turbulent seas, is a very, very important phenomenon in this business. And that leads to all kinds of positive benefits. You will tend to invest your fund over a longer period of time, which we call in our business time diversity. Don't blow through your fund in 1 or 2 years, right? Because you might be paying too much, or you might not be picking the right things.
have enough duration, be disciplined about entry points and valuations that you get into things, not just pretend like, the next round will take care of situations here and so on. And number 3 is, even though you might raise a lot of money for a company, be very disciplined about capital efficiency and how you invest, and is a really important paradigm. Lessons that we painfully became aware of from the 2000 to 2003 timeframe that's incredibly relevant, not just today. It is relevant to us the last 4 years of in the boom market as well. And that's what is important to make sure companies will survive and flourish in the years to come.
So one of the things as an investor is that you take board seats and you sit on a lot of boards of a lot of diverse, different types of companies. So when you do that, you get to see a lot of companies that live by those lessons that you're talking, and maybe some that don't do as well when it comes to things like capital efficiency. So what are some things that you've found by being a board member of companies? Because this is something not a lot of us get to do, right? We found a company or we work for a company, but to actually sit on the board of a company and be able to advise them, I think probably brings with it some unique vantage points. So having done that for so many companies, what are some of the mistakes you've seen and some of maybe the positives you've seen?
When you are operating a business and each day you are getting amazing data points, right? Feels the euphoric highs to a customer cancels and an important employee quits. You feel deep in the deep lows of the business, right? And the people who've been there a long time tend to synthesize and integrate that and saying, let's take the longer arc, and don't overreact to an incredible positive news that makes it phenomenal or a bad news that makes it feel like the dumps. And we are there as thought partners to help them integrate through that, to smooth out those ups and downs here is what we like to do, and keep providing that perspective on what does this mean? Is this the canary in the coal mine about something that's good or something that's bad? And what does it mean with respect to business strategy going forward? How do you look around corners with respect to what needs to happen? And so that's the perspective we provide. And we can do that because we are not deep in the trenches on a minute by minute, day-to-day basis. We can step back, and we have the benefits of having seen this across hundreds of companies, perhaps in our careers and lifetimes, and be able to bring and parlay that expertise, that insight to the table, and help founders zoom out and look at the view on what needs to happen over the next course of the quarter or the course of the year. That's the biggest strategic, philosophical perspective we bring to the table. And then, of course, immensely tactically, we help people with relentlessly around recruiting and closing good talent and so on is important. Helping them with financing choices and connections to people, etc. Helping just think about every little minutia that you feel like you are the first call they make. We like to say this in our business that we want to be the first call for an entrepreneur in good times and bad times, right? And so we want them to call us and ask us the question on, so what do I do about blank? And that call, we all aspire, it's something that's earned and not that's something that's automatically given to us, that we earn the right, that we earn the privilege that they will call us first for those kind of conversations.
Nice. Well, you bring up the fact of all the different things that matter. And one thing you said was making sure that the entrepreneur has the connections to the right people. How important is it for an entrepreneur who's trying to grow a venture-backed company, or even if they're bootstrapped or whatever, how important is it to really grow their network in the community and their industry and beyond so that they have those right connections? And what does that really mean from your standpoint?
Oh, it's incredibly important, right? Because connections means, I think of every connection to be a learning opportunity, right? So people should be very much looking to leverage these connections in community for the purpose of learning, and learning from people who have been there, done that, people from adjacent industries, from their customers. So that community is incredibly important. Number 2 is that will be the pipeline for hiring talent. That could be the pipeline for prospective customers. That could be the pipeline for follow-on investors. So that community is incredibly important. And of course, those are kind of the things that we bring to the table as well. And that's the local lens we bring to the table. The local lens around if a company needs blank here in Texas, I believe we can make those connections simply better than anybody else out there.
So sometimes, though, some of these entrepreneurs, they might be more introverted. Maybe they're just an engineer who is down in the technology, and sometimes they don't realize that it's important that they grow that network, even in the early stages. Maybe even to get the funding to find their way to make a connection to someone like LiveOak. So, what do you tell a new entrepreneur to get them sort of out of that shell to realizing that people is a key to growing a business?
That's just part and parcel of being an entrepreneur, Tom. You just have to get out there. It's just part and parcel of hustle is to go and make that happen, right? And if people feel like they don't want to get out of the shell to go make those things happen, then I would advise them to go get another partner with them who will have those characteristics and figure out what a role might look like for that partner so that they can maximize what the opportunity is. It's very difficult to be in a shell and still aspire to build a phenomenal company.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's shift over to LiveOak Venture Partners. So what caused you to step out and take on sort of that personal entrepreneurial hat and found this firm? And what lessons did you take from being an investor in starting your own firm?
It was, and once now it feels like what an obvious opportunity. A lot of people did not think that was the case. When Venu and I set out to start LiveOak, right, it was, we had built a tremendous track record at Austin Ventures, had a wonderful run for a decade. We knew the local landscape extremely well. We had worked together well. So you go and tell LPs, look, what you want is strong duration of a team that's worked together, that's made money, it's a great market, and there is no capital in this market. Texas at the time was in this multi-year drought of just not having any local investors. And it's such an obvious opportunity for us to come in, and it's a once-in-a-generational opportunity to come in and start a new firm in this market to dominate what is and will be a phenomenal market. We felt all the DNA was there in terms of the talent that is required to build something of substance. So that was the origins of what got us fired to do this. It was a very difficult, so that's like any other entrepreneurship gig, right? You feel like there's an obvious market opportunity. You feel like you have the unique insight and domain knowledge to be successful there. You feel like you have the right skills to be successful there. And that's what leads to birth of any single company there. The second part is, like any other opportunity, it was our ultimate test for grit to get to our first fund. It was a time when fundraising was incredibly hard. We are just coming out of the global financial crisis. Venture 10-year returns were worse than the S&P because you took away 99, 2000 returns. So people didn't feel like venture was even worth it. On top of that, people didn't feel like being in Texas would be useful at all. And if they had enough exposure to California, why bother with being in Texas was a common sentiment. So you had to work against all of that. And we ended up with a $105 million first fund with outstanding investors. We had 2 public pensions as anchor investors, who are the hardest of investors to get through the system, to close and so on. So it was the ultimate testament to just simply persevering, having the having the conviction that we are onto something here, giving up on other opportunities that we could have gone and done for a couple of years, so that we can have the dream achieved of having a meaningful size fund here. So we finally had the final close in 2014. It was even then the largest fund raised in this market since Austin Ventures in 2008. And so obviously, fast forward, it was the right bet. We have been parties to this incredible surge in the local market. I think we're the most active investor in Texas as we speak in the last couple of years. And it's the testament to, sticking to what was the strategy and not deviating from that at all, which is what we tell our entrepreneurs. Focus matters. Focus begets exceptionalism. And we have lived by that adage very much by sticking to the knitting.
So why the focus specifically, total focus on Texas entrepreneurs? Why just Texas? We have surrounding state. There's might be some good deals out in California. Why are you so laser focused on Texas? We'll be back with a few more questions in just a second, but first we have to thank the sponsor of this episode. Today's podcast is sponsored by RSM, a national audit, tax, and consulting firm with offices in Austin and nearly 1,500 team members in Texas. Focused on the middle market, RSM helps growing businesses gain an advantage. Powered by the latest technologies, RSM works together to help map your path to success. RSM develops unique insights and tools to enable you to move forward with confidence. Visit rsmus.com to learn more. And now, back to the interview.
It's because I think we have perfected the mousetrap, perfected a playbook on what it takes to build great companies here. We know what it take a Disco, which was formed when we wrote a $2 million check, to a $2 billion IPO, right? We know what takes Homeward when we backed a single employee company to now to be approaching triple digits in revenues in 4.5 years. So we have done that repeatedly now, and we have done that before at Austin Ventures. So I think we have a lot of conviction that we know how to do it in this market. So stick to what you're good at, especially if the market is a fertile market. So it's good to be big fish in a small pond. Make sure the pond is not too small. The pond is thriving. The pond is growing. And we have the pole position to be successful in this market. And so keep doing what you're great at and keep improving your trade and doing more and more, make it better, make it each day, iterate and make that better, right? And that's been the emphasis and the philosophy. And we're just having a wonderful time doing that.
So I think for a lot of entrepreneurs and maybe wannabe entrepreneurs, there's sort of this veil, like what does an investor want? What does a VC want from an entrepreneur? Is there a certain formula, or is it different every single time in who you decide to invest in versus not? I've heard it said that, the idea comes second, the people come first, but is there sort of some sort of regular formula that you follow or what?
That's semi-cliched, right? But it's true. Let's unpack that more, because people hear that and say, what does it even mean? What it means, I think if you look at the patterns of great companies we backed, they're either repeat entrepreneurs who've been there, done that, and therefore they obviously know what to do. Or the more common fact pattern is these are people with incredible knowledge, domain knowledge of a specific area, and which they can parlay to, and therefore they have a real insight as to what is broken, where is the opportunity there, and they can cross-pollinate that with technology and do magical things with a certain industry. Disco, amazing entrepreneur with legal domain knowledge, and who could disrupt the legal market. Tim Heil at Homeward, right? Amazing real estate knowledge, can parlay that to be something like that. So that's a very common pattern here. So I would tell entrepreneurs to do things where they can really take their strengths, take their knowledge, and able to answer the question, why me? Why am I uniquely positioned to go tackle this problem? Is what people should think about, and try to parlay their expertise, their knowledge about opportunity, their knowledge of a space, and convert that into an exciting opportunity. That's the first thing we look for, is to ourselves try to answer the question, what's unique about this team? What's unique about this founder to go tackle the problem? And then with that as a basis, we have backed even very early people. Like, as I said, we back people at the time of formation. We back people with one employee, pre-product, etc. We've done all of these things. The second trait that we look for in these people is a certain level of authenticity, right? People being able to comfortably acknowledge what they know, what they don't know. And with that comes a certain spirit, a collaborative spirit that comes with that. These are people who are eager to learn, will be terrific to work with, and who will see this to be a two-way street. They want to work with us, we want to work with them, set of humans. And so a certain level of authenticity and a certain level of collaboration that comes with this. And the last is you want people who will demonstrate this, the hustle factor, the desire for unbridled spirit of hard work and and trying hard to build something of substance. People with a lot of ambition and passion and all that put together. And maybe those would be the three things. So in summary, domain-led, authentic humans, and lastly, incredible hustle and spirit of drive to go make things work would be the characteristics.
Well, and you've got those same characteristics on your team. I've met several people at LiveOak, and you guys have sort of all of those same things going for you. How important is it as you're building the company to make sure that you're paying close attention to who you're hiring, who you're putting on your bus?
It's very well said, Tom. It's the most important decision that we make, and we're very deliberate in how we hire people. We want to hire people for absolutely the long haul. We want people who embody these LiveOak values and LiveOak ethos. And it is the entrepreneur first mindset, right? The way you do well in this firm is absolutely anticipating difficulties, challenges, and being helpful and supportive to entrepreneurs is incredibly important. So we want people with that spirit of collaboration, both within and in the broader community, is an incredibly important trait here that we want people to have. And hopefully we keep doing that.
Well, and you guys do, you get involved in the community. You host a lot of things educational for your portfolio and for others in the community. And then you guys also give back. In fact, last year you won a charitable giving award, and you were the first for the A-list awards from the Chamber of Commerce. You won the inaugural investor A-list awards. So that's both, hey, you're doing it in business and you're giving back for that other award. So what is it about winning both of those last year that you're most proud of?
Yeah, it's a special year, right? Wonderful to win the inaugural year. It means that what we embarked on 10 years ago is recognized, that we are indeed doing right by our investors, LPs, and we are on to continuing to build something special here. Is definitely is a good validation. We've always cheered on the sidelines when our portfolio companies won the A-list awards. So it's good to be the first winners of that. I'm also equally proud of the charitable giving award. It's broadly, as you alluded to, supporting the community is a big part of what we do here, because the rising tide will raise all boats. And so, yes, we throw a lot of parties, etc., more to create that level of connective tissue to help bring people together to collaborate. And that will just simply will lead to great things for Austin, great things for Texas in general. But even a further extension of that is, what about people who are not part of the tech ecosystem? There are so many vulnerable populations here. We've got a massive affordability crisis in this town, right? And we've got a lot of problems in this town about people who are less fortunate. We used to write personal checks to many of these organizations. And so we looked around and said, why don't we marshal our monies, marshal our broader marketing machine to put a spotlight on some amazing organizations? So 4 years ago, we said, let's create this thing called LiveOak Gives as a campaign. And we'll seed it every year, and then we'll pass the hat to friends of the firm. And we are approaching $1 million of monies given out in the last 4 years. Wow. And we typically pick 6 organizations targeting vulnerable populations. And we not only give them money, but we put them on a pedestal. We amplify their message. We get the word out about who they are and what kind of communities they serve. And hopefully it's not only the money that is obviously powerful, but also that word of mouth activity leads to more powerful things from engagement in their organization, engagement, awareness for them. All of that could happen as a part of that. We're about to announce our next set of grantees in the next week. So look out for that.
Nice. So here's the other thing is that as we look to the future of Austin, it's often smart to talk to people who've been here for a while. So you got here in 2000, right after you got here, things were booming, and then they weren't booming. Then we boomed again. Then we had 2008 and 9 and that. Austin has always bounced back. The one thing I've seen, I've been here 31 years, is that every time there's a downturn, we come back stronger. What do you think is the future of our technology community, our ecosystem here in Austin? Does it look good?
Looks fantastic. I think that those traits you talked about are very special here in Austin, right? People are truly much more collaborative. People are wanting to help the other one get better. there is if I help you, things will somehow, this karmic goodness will come back around is a core sentiment in this town. So people are very collaborative. Number two is people are very gritty. This is not a place where you get tons and tons of money thrown at you. So people know how to work with less money, intrinsically much more capital efficient, intrinsically can pick themselves up and be more successful. So people are much more capital efficient. And lastly, the community here is growing nicely because what I would tell you is the local talent ecosystem has reached a point of maturation. Good people coming out of successful companies, starting the next company, and so on. So there is real critical mass of this community that's underway here. So there is really bubbling up of this activity that's happening. So I'm very excited about how much of this critical mass is going to lead to much more powerful things in the next decade to come.
So is there anything we need to be cautious of? Are there any roadblocks or stumbling blocks along the way for Austin that as a community we should come together and address?
It continues to be, like we want to keep combination of importing talent and the obvious things around infrastructure, affordability are all challenges in this town here. So can we grow in a more organized fashion, in a more systematic fashion, right? Are all things we all worry about, right? And so not to, on one side you can't just have the high-end talent alone growing and the rest of the infrastructure not keeping pace with it. So those are things we should worry about.
So, Krishna, I end every episode by asking the guest about these three words that I think can solve all of our problems, and that is community, collaboration, and conversation. When we have more of those three things, I think we all win as individuals and as a community. Which of those words resonates with you the most, and why?
I think it's really community. But obviously, like I just mentioned, they all go together. If you don't have the right kind of community, it's the right kind of community that is collaborative. I'm going to keep adding to more C's here. That's collaborative. You have critical mass of talent here, and you can take all these conversations they have with this to build amazing capital efficient companies, right? And so you put all these things together and that virtuous cycle keeps growing and you will have a absolutely fabulous, flourishing place here for years to come.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you being here on the show. If somebody would like to get in touch with you or find out more about LiveOak Ventures, how do they find you?
They can email any of us or they can email me at firstnamekrishna@liveoakvp.com. We are always responsive and we've backed companies from cold emails multiple times and always look forward to hearing from people.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for being here on the show. I appreciate it. And I love what you said about our community being gritty. That's what we're trying to do at the Austin Technology Council. We're trying to reinvent what we're doing, going back to being a grassroots organization. And so we appreciate the people who support the community, support the ecosystem, because that's how we're going to continue to build ATC. So thank you for being here on the show and for everything that you and your partners do for Austin and our tech ecosystem. And hey, thanks to everyone who tunes in and listens to this podcast. You know what? Every single week, we try to bring you things that will inspire you to think and be able to improve the growth of both your career and the company with which you work for. So is your company a member of the Austin Technology Council? We would love your involvement and have you add your voice to our tech community as we look to the future. Join the Austin Technology Council today.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.